Inspired by the work of Patrick Keiller, I travelled to Manchester, where I was due to meet with a local historian to complete a spatial investigation into the city's urban and rural landscapes. Contacted by a not well-known art collective in Manchester, I was tasked to undertake a research project for their exhibition, Which Human is Correct?, in Manchester Art Gallery. I had been reading the conditions of the working class in England and was interested in seeing the city for myself. Upon arrival, I stayed in the Britannia Airport Hotel. For the past 11 years, the Cheshire-based group has been named as Britain's worst hotel chain by the consumer research group Which. The owner of the hotel group is Alex Langsam, an Austrian refugee who immigrated to Britain when his homeland was annexed by Nazi Germany in 1938. For many years, the chain has earned well from Home Office contracts to house and feed asylum seekers, for which reason the British tabloids have christened him the Asylum King. Wythenshawe Hall was built in the 16th century for Robert Tatton. It was home to the Tatton family for almost 400 years. In the winter of 1643-44, the house was besieged by parliamentarian forces during the English Civil War. The building was badly damaged in an arson attack in March 2016. The hall finally reopened to visitors in September 2022 after extensive repairs. Wythenshawe is Manchester's largest district. The massive housing estate that was built there in the 1920s was intended as a garden city, where people could be rehoused away from industrial Manchester. With an area of approximately 11 square miles, Wythenshawe became the largest council estate in Europe. When visiting the district in 2007, David Cameron never actually used the term hug a hoodie, despite it becoming a defining motif of his leadership. Doreen Barbara Massey was born in Wythenshawe on the 3rd of January 1944. A British social scientist and geographer, she specialised in Marxist geography, feminist geography and cultural geography, as well as other topics. She was Professor of Geography at the Open University. For me, places are articulations of natural and social relations that are not fully contained within a place itself. First, places are not closed or bounded, which politically lays the ground for critiques of exclusivity. Second, places are not given. They are always in open-ended process. They are in that sense events. Third, they and their identity will always be contested. And we could almost talk about the local level struggles of hegemony when we think about this. Travelling over the River Mersey towards the city, my companion informed me that on Thursday the 9th of January 2025, over 1,000 people had to leave their homes when the river hit its highest level in 66 years. Hundreds of people were to be rescued as a nearby Britannia hotel, which is housing asylum seekers, was evacuated. The MEN understands the number could top 500. Questions are still being asked about the collapse of the Bridgewater Canal embankment at Dunham Massey on New Year's Day. As a shock city, Manchester, during the peak of its industrial growth in the early 19th century, was an object of fascination and repulsion to the visitors it attracted. Present-day Manchester is home to 552,000 residents, at the centre of a wider region of 2.87 million, the product of 3 centuries of migration and economic change. Whalley Range is located about 2 miles southwest of the city centre. In his book, Bourgeois Utopia, The Rise and Fall of Suburbia, American academic Robert Fishman makes the claim that it was not only Manchester's first suburb, but the world's first as well. Built by Manchester banker and businessman Samuel Brooks, when he moved from Mosley Street in the city centre due to the dehumanising effects of industrialisation, he designed Whalley Range as a desirable estate for gentlemen and their families. We stopped for a brief rest at my companion's home, where he played me his favourite track from the Smiths' self-titled album. When Morrissey was asked by a London music journalist at the time whether Whalley Range was a real place, "I'm afraid so," he replied. "It's a little suburb of Manchester, Bensett land, and everyone who lives there is an unrecognised poet or failed artist." Of the 4 Beatles, only Harrison fully embraced Krishna consciousness. Harrison enjoyed a warm friendship with Prabhupada. It provided the inspiration for Harrison's songs such as Living in the Material World. Alexandra Park was opened to the public in 1870 and was designed by Alexander Hennel. The design of the park was experimental in its use of oval shapes and curved pathways, which contrasted with the more rigid geometry seen previously in Victorian landscapes. Local park user Dolores has described how in the 1950s, the fascist Oswald Mosley spoke here. He was chased away by a crowd which included her father, Sam Wilde, who was a commander of a British brigade in the Spanish Civil War. Hume Hippodrome, or the Nia Centre, as it is now more commonly referred, is a shuttered Grade 2 listed building. Its natural heritage significance includes being the venue for live recording of the first 3 series of BBC programmes by Markham and Wise. Harry Houdini also performed here. In 2003, it was bought by controversial religious charity, the Gilbert Deer Ministries, or GDM. In 2017, Daniel was extradited back to his native Kenya to address allegations of child theft. Accusations he denied. He held a 7-day Unusual Miracles event at the Hippodrome in 2016. On 11th of April 1962, there is a press report concerning the state of the houses around the Hume Hippodrome, saying it was the biggest area to be recommended for slum clearance in Manchester since the war, leading to 1,280 homes being demolished by around 1965, and many of the old roads being stopped up and removed. This urban renewal displaced many families who were the theatre's local audiences, before new residents returned to live in Hume. Taking me to see Manchester's highway in the sky, the Mancunian Way, my companion became increasingly erratic as he explained the lost potentialities of the proposed City of Manchester Plan 1945. Written by Roland Nicholas and his staff, Nicholas wanted to enable every inhabitant of the city to enjoy real health of body and health of mind. He imagined a city centre of wide tree-lined boulevards, of fresh air, of zoned areas for commerce, housing, industry, education and recreation. First Street is a vibrant neighbourhood that can be found between Oxford Road and Deansgate. It is home to a number of businesses and is a popular spot for food, drink and culture. My companion was infused when he saw what he thought was a statue of local religious figure John Moe, although I had to explain to him it was actually a statue of Frederick Engels.
Це дівчина, що вірно кохає, це народ, що співає пісні. Україна – це я, Україна – це ти, Україна – це ми, Україна. Тихий спів солов'я, і дивини сади, чорне море.
The war in Sudan now represents the largest and fastest displacement crisis in the world. It is also the largest humanitarian crisis on record. On the 16th of August 1819, the huge open area around what is now St. Peter's Square played host to an outrage against over 60,000 peaceful pro-democracy and anti-poverty protesters, an event which became known as the Peterloo Massacre. An estimated 18 people, including 4 women and a child, died from sabre cuts and trampling. Nearly 700 men, women and children received extremely serious injuries. The Friends Meeting House nearby provided a refuge for the injured and those fleeing from the cavalry. My companion seemed to get increasingly fatigued by his taking me on a tour through the city. When we arrived at a new American-themed bar in the northern quarter, he said that if the world was going to end, we should at least sing karaoke together first. Mather and Platt is the name of several large engineering firms in Europe, South Africa and Asia. The original company was founded in Newton Heath, where it was a major employer. Going to work presents a great industrial scene of hundreds of factory workers walking towards the Mather and Platt building, painted in Lowry's characteristic style as matchstark figures. My companion told me this was a site where his grandfather worked after World War II, manufacturing sprinklers for fire safety. Newton Heath is located 2.8 miles north-east of Manchester city centre, with a population of 9,883. Historically part of Lancashire, Newton was formerly a farming area, but adopted the factory system following the Industrial Revolution. The principal industry in the area became engineering, although many were employed in the mining and textile industries in the thriving areas of Clayton Vale and Bradford. Manchester United has strong links with the area, having been formed from the Newton Heath Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway Football Club in 1878. Newton Chapel, now All Saints Church, stood on the wild heath on the highest ground on the site of the ancient Roman road from Chester to Manchester. This road is now Briscoe Lane, which connects to Roman Road Failsworth and leads on to York. The Fairfield Moravian settlement opened in 1785. It was planned and built by Moravians, and it functioned as a self-contained village. The Moravian Church was started in the late 14th century. The members objected to some of the practices of the Roman Catholic Church and wanted to return the church in Bohemia and Moravia to what they believed were the simpler practices of early Christianity. These were some of the earliest Protestants, rebelling against Rome more than 100 years before Martin Luther. Evidence of Stone Age, Bronze Age and Viking activity have been discovered in Ashton-under-Lyne. The Ashton part of the town's name probably dates from the Anglo-Saxon period and derives from Old English, meaning settlement by ash trees. Until the introduction of the cotton trade in 1769, Ashton was considered bare, wet and almost worthless. My companion took me to what he thought was the location of a downed meteorite. I didn't have it in me to correct him otherwise. The Christian Israelite Church was founded in 1822 by John Rowe. From 1822 to 1831, the church had its headquarters in Ashton, as Rowe believed it was the location of what he called the New Jerusalem. Rowe's followers intended to build a wall around the town with 4 gateways. The wall was never constructed, but the 4 gateways were, and one still stands today. Ladysmith Barracks was a British military installation on Musley Road. The barracks were originally established in response to the threat from civil unrest associated with the Chartist movement. The name of the barracks was changed to commemorate the actions of Manchester Regiment at the siege of Ladysmith during the Second Boer War. In 1958, the barracks were decommissioned, and in 1985 they were demolished. My companion informs me that these are the barracks where his grandfather reported when he served in World War II. At the end of our journey, we summited Hartshead Pike, a hill that overlooks Ashton Line, Mosley, Saddleworth, Lees and Oldham. A tower or beacon is supposed to have stood on the hill for over 1,000 years. The present tower was built in 1751 to commemorate the wedding of the Prince of Wales, Albert Edward, to the Princess Alexandra of Denmark. It was used as an observation post during World War II, and the door was bricked up at the end of the war. The hill is said to be haunted by a knight, John of Jerusalem, who in the form of a crescent light endlessly circles the tower. The inscription above the tower's entrance reads, "Look well at me before you go, and see you nothing at me throw." Looking out to the west, you realise this is the last hill before the city of Manchester and all the flat miles of Cheshire.